Hey listener, this is She Achieved Podcast with me, Albine Bennett. This podcast is about conversations with extraordinary women in Northeast Mississippi and beyond who had the courage to follow their inner calling. Despite the challenges they encountered, whether in business or community, they consistently and relentlessly pursued greatness. Success can take on many forms and looks differently depending on who you ask. But achieving success is something all of us can do. She Achieved is about inspiring you to chase your dreams and aspirations, just like the ladies I've been interviewing. These amazing women are sharing their stories so you can be empowered to achieve your greatness and become who you were created to be. I am so excited to be able to create a bigger impact for you and others, and I hope these stories of She Achieved will be as impactful to you as they are to me. Hey everybody, before we jump into today's podcast, I want to ask you sincerely to leave me a 5-star review. I am working extremely hard to deliver this podcast every 2 weeks. I want to have great guests and really serve you, and it's free. The only thing I ask is that if you're able to leave me a 5-star review on iTunes, I would be incredibly grateful. Thanks so much. Amanda, thank you so much for being on today's She Achieved podcast episode.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have our listeners hear from you, learn about you, hear your story really, because I don't think many people really realize what your journey has been like. I think they know you for, you and your husband, Jason, they know you for Cafe 212, and you guys are super involved in the community and you have a lot of cool projects going on. But I think it's going to be really nifty to hear your story and how Cafe 212 became and how you guys came to where you are today. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll jump right in.
All right. Well, my husband, Jason, and I have been married a little over 18 years now, and we have had the cafe over 17 of those years. We started when we were babies, 25-year-olds, not knowing at all what we were getting into. But I had worked for my cousin who had a small cafe in town and found that I liked that. I never really had a specific career in mind that I needed a degree for. I've always kind of had that mindset of I'll figure it out, and if I really want to do it, I'll make it happen. So it was sort of something I just kind of fell into. I actually hate cooking, and I'm an introvert, so being around the public all the time isn't really the best for someone like that. Thankfully, Jason is very extroverted, loves talking to people, loves getting to know everyone and their stories, and it's worked out great for us because of that. It's just sort of something that happened, and found out that I was good at it, and it works for me. I get to be my own boss. It's a very difficult industry to be in, a lot of challenges there, but at 17 years, we're finally kind of in that space where it's second nature, and it's not as difficult to get through day to day and when obstacles come up. So yeah, we're enjoying it.
So I take it you don't cook at home.
Absolutely not. Jason does all of the cooking at home. I would starve. He's actually out of town this week. He's on a guy's trip in Colorado. And before he left, he tried to leave me all of these easy to make things because I hate cooking. Now, it's not that I'm bad at it. I just don't enjoy it. Some people enjoy running. It will never be me. Sandwiches I can handle. It's more assembly than actual cooking, and I do love food. Like, that is one of my biggest joys in life is food. So that part, I definitely, this makes sense for me. But it's always funny to people who've known me a long time, and they're like, "But you hate cooking. Why do you have a restaurant?" So yeah.
Let's go back to when you guys made the decision to open up the cafe. You've already alluded to it, like you've done it with your cousin, so you knew that could be potentially something you'd be interested in. But really being a newlywed and deciding to do this together, let's go back to that time and talk to us about the steps that happened to kind of make it all happen.
Yeah, it was crazy. So like I said, we were pretty young. I was doing wedding photography at the time, so still kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Jason worked at Radio Shack. The first 2 years he worked at Radio Shack, and he would obviously help with the cafe, but he wasn't a main part of it back then. And really just getting adjusted to understanding how to manage other humans. That was the trickiest part for me, and to this day is still the trickiest part. Employees are always, they're wonderful. It's great getting to be a part of somebody's lives, but also you almost have to be a therapist as well as a business manager, because you've got to know how to deal with all these different people's personalities and their quirks, and what you have to learn to do to get the result you need from them, because no one's the same. So yeah, there were a lot of obstacles to overcome with that we only figured out with time and trial and error. But yeah, my cousin had Yummy Yogurt, and she wanted to open a second location, so she opened a location downtown, and I managed that for her for a little while, and then she realized that was more than she wanted to have, so she understood I enjoyed doing it, and she's like, if you want to do this on your own, you can buy the equipment from me and go for it. And I was like, yeah, why not? I mean, when you're in your 20s, that's how you are about stuff. You're like, sure, I can do that. I mean, the failure ratio in restaurants is ridiculous, but 20-something-year-olds don't look at that. They're just like,
they do not.
Sure, I'll just make sandwiches for people. It'll be real easy. So yeah, that's kind of, it just sort of happened, and we stuck with it until we got to a point where it wasn't so difficult.
So buying equipment, you would have had to have either, financially have had some of, saved up amount, or go to the bank. And did you have any trouble like convincing Jason, like, hey, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. Jason did want to leave Radio Shack because he's like, we're not going to have a life if one of us doesn't keep a job. So yes, it was very difficult. My husband is not a risk taker, and I am nothing but a risk taker. So he's always wanted to take the path that is known, and you cannot know anything in the restaurant industry. You never know what's going to happen. So I was, up for it because, like I said, I've always kind of had this attitude and belief that if it doesn't work out, I'll figure something else out. I'll just figure it out and do it and make it happen. And that's what we did. And thankfully, he actually, I would say Jason enjoys this even more than I do now, because he loves the interaction with the community, which I do too. But like I said, I'm a little on the introverted side, so I also really love being at home by myself with my dogs. And he gets that, social interaction and gets to be a part of everything. And he enjoys cooking, so it helps that we have that balance.
I love it. Are there any particular moments during your journey that stick out the most to you as far as challenges? I can think of one immediately that's an obvious one, COVID, the most recent one, but maybe early on, or some of the things you experienced there, and then let's also touch on COVID too.
Yeah, for sure. The first thing that pops out for me would be there was one year, the Gumtree Art Festival in town. Used to be, we were open for Gumtree, and it was our biggest event of the year. So we would stock like 3 times the amount of product that we would normally have. Our fridges and freezer, and anyone that's been here before can see it's a pretty small workspace we have. We have one tiny little room with one big fridge and one freezer, and we stuffed it full of every bit of food we could. And it turned out it rained that year, I think, and there wasn't as big of a crowd as we were expecting, so we had all this food left over. And we're like, fine, we'll on Monday deal with that. We come in on Sunday to do our prep work, and immediately open the door, and there's a horrible smell. And it was because our fridge had completely broken down, all of our food was ruined, and the fridge wasn't working, and you can't operate a restaurant without a working refrigerator. So we had to shut down, on top of losing all that money, with the product that we'd invested in. We had to replace our fridge, which is a huge expense. And whoever built the room that our fridge is in didn't build it around the fridge. So that was a whole other challenge. But that was just such a setback and heartbreak for us, having to deal with all of that loss. And then immediately the community rallied around us. There were people raising money for us to replace the fridge. The week that we opened back up, I remember one of our first customers, a lady, just bought a salad. Our stuff is pretty inexpensive, and she gave us $100 for her salad, like that kind of stuff. And that alone is what has kept us in business as long as we has for sure been the support of the community. However, introverted I may be, and I get nervous around people sometimes and crowds, all of that kind of stuff, I will always fall back on these people are always here for us. And yeah, it's just been, it's made all the difference.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, the importance of building relationships. You've already mentioned it, and I know that has been really critical to y'all's success. But let's expand a little bit more on that. What does that look like, and what have you guys done to be a part of the community, to be intertwined with the community and the relationship building?
Well, for one thing, I would say that having lived here my entire life is definitely, that gives me a leg up on knowing people, because I'll be 44 this year. That's a good bit of time to put in. Jason moved here when he was 12, so we both already knew a lot of people in the community. It's a pretty tight-knit community, so I feel like once you start getting to know certain people, you get introduced to others, and that network grows organically. Having a restaurant and having people come in and developing regulars. There's a lot of, the closest friends I have right now came from them being customers here. So that all just kind of happened naturally. But both Jason and I, we don't have children. And so I feel like we've always focused on, we've still got to keep raising ourselves and making sure we're developing and evolving the way we should. But also, if we're not going to be physically with a human being putting something out in the world, we've got to do that ourselves. So we're both have always had a heart for that and interest in it, in doing things that give back to the community. But we also just really like to have a fun time. So a party is a really great fundraiser. So we used to throw just all of these different themed parties. There was the mustache bash that Tupelo used to have. We started that because Jason wanted to grow a mustache, and I said no. And he got all of his guy friends to band together and grow them with him. And then they're like, but what if we had a party themed around it? We raise money for the autism center. And I was like, okay, fine. So just a lot of stuff happens that way. But I think, just really wanting to see your community do better and grow. And I've never wanted to live in a large metropolitan area. And I think the great thing about Tupelo is it's small enough that everyone can have a voice in it, and that you can pursue change and actually see it. We have a fantastic leadership in Tupelo that supports people wanting to do new things, and that's never been an obstacle for us. It could have been different for us if we lived in a city that had a whole bunch of red tape you had to go through, and they're like, no, you can't have a party themed on mustaches, So yeah, I feel like that just kind of naturally happened with us pursuing what made us happy, and one of the things that made us happy was making sure where we lived was better.
I love that, Amanda. Thank you for sharing. I agree with you on everything you just touched on, especially for Tupelo, but I also think about those other communities that maybe don't have that as much. But I think that goes for anywhere. You have to decide to take action.
Yes.
In order to get it to the next level, or to the outcome that you're envisioning, right? Mm-hmm. And for you and Jason, it has been, we want to improve our community. We want to continuously grow, and we want to see our community grow. And there are so many different ways that you can get involved, but it really starts with you individually making that decision.
Yeah.
Truly, it really does. And we are known as a community for that, because the question, is not, well, where should I get? It's where would you like to be involved in, right? And then you can just jump right in and make it your own and do whatever you can with it. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious, have you ever thought about what you would have done if you didn't have a restaurant? Or let me rephrase that. Have you ever also maybe, I don't know how to word it. I was thinking about it. Would you do it the same way again? Are there things you think you maybe would have done differently knowing what you know now?
I feel like I would love it if the 17 veteran in the restaurant industry could talk to year one and be like, here's a checklist. You're going to need this. Just go by this. It'll make things a lot easier. Unfortunately, so much stuff you don't learn without trial and error. As far as thinking about and dreaming about anything else I would want to do every day. I think that's something Jason and I struggle with because this is a very physical job. It's a very physical job. We're in our 40s now. Both of us have only ever worked in retail or restaurants. So we've been on our feet since we were teenagers, and that's wearing on you. I've got arthritis. I've got, bone spurs, all of these things that I have to ask the young 20-something-year-olds to pick that up for me. And eventually that's going to get to a point that it's affecting my quality of life and I can't do that anymore. So we're trying to, think of what the future would look like for us. I don't know what that is yet. I know we're not ready. This has been our baby. We've had it most of our marriage, a large part of our adult life, and letting that go, I can't imagine it right now. I know it's got to happen someday, but at the moment it's just like, well, this is, I don't want anybody raising my baby but me, and I'd love for my future to look like something that I have a lot more. I can do some work at home and have a little bit more freedom since I do enjoy being home so much, and maybe that lets me travel a little more because that's something Jason and I enjoy a lot. But right now, this is where we're meant to be, and this is where we'll keep trucking.
So recently I saw the article on your beautiful home that you guys renovated, and that took a lot longer than you expected.
Yes.
What was that like? You have to work and work during the day for your business, go home and work. And I have my own experience of that, so I know it was tough, and you guys did a beautiful job. But what was that like?
And with your spouse.
Yes, exactly.
And also we work, it's like Jason and I literally work maybe 2-3 feet away from each other every day. It's really funny whenever I go out somewhere and Jason's not with me. They're like, "Where's Jason?" I'm like, "Well, we have to sometimes not be around each other." So I would not do this without him, though. I don't think it's for all marriages for the couple to work together, but I would absolutely the work closed because he's out of town. Like, I would never do this without him. But yeah, when we sometimes it's just like, are you trying to see how much your marriage could handle? You're gonna open a restaurant together and try and make that work. That's a very tricky business to be in. You're going to renovate a house, like take it down to the studs and do all of that kind of on your own. Like it's sometimes at some points it's like, I feel like we're making things harder on us than we should. But it actually was not a big problem for us in our relationship anyways. I know it's a struggle a lot of times going through it, but we're so used to already working together, and that also, I think, helped us in COVID. There were a lot of couples that had to spend more time together than they were used to, and I was like, we're already together every day, almost every second of the day, so that helps a lot. But yeah, it was my great-grandmother's home. We had dreams of living there for a while and saving up money because it was a family house, and then building someday, and we had lived there 10 years and realized we really liked it there. We just need to figure out how to make this our dream. And so, unfortunately, it's now a 102-year-old house. So they come with so many problems that you have no idea until you actually get down to it. So the house it started with, we're going to fix the foundation and we're going to add a bathroom because we only had one bathroom. And then that turned into, all right, we're going to pick the house up and move it. We're going to redo the foundation. We're going to add 3 porches. We're going to add a second floor. And it just kept building. And we had to it took us 5 years because we had to take so many breaks because I'd be like, well, we're going to need to sell some more sandwiches before we get these floors done. And because all of it, we didn't take a loan out. We wanted to be debt free when it was over with. That was part of the plan. So it was work a little, pay for this, wait, work a little, pay for this. And eventually it is finished now and I don't want to leave it. So that's a new problem we're encountering right now. Is like, oh, we go back to work Monday. Okay, I guess I can't live on my porch anymore. But yeah, it was a struggle, but I think it was just another thing to help us know we can get past obstacles because our history tells us we can.
Well, I think renovating a home together is definitely a true testament to your relationship and partnership, and really, especially for marriages, because it's definitely a process. So we've done that a couple of times ourselves. So I'm right there with you. You really learn a lot about your partner and what motivates them, what makes them tick, what bothers them, what doesn't, and a lot
When
of
to
times
walk
you
away.
figure that's right, when to walk away, not scream. There's a lot of cuss words in mine, so it is what it is. But I think that's how you learn and grow together, right? I think it just deepens that relationship,
Absolutely.
and strengthens it, and then you really, it's really a beautiful thing. You get to really know them on a whole nother
Yes.
level.
Yes.
Okay, so has mentorship in any way or capacity played a role in your success?
I would say, early on, like I said, I worked for my cousin Robin, and so I learned what I knew about the restaurant industry from her. So definitely she was a big help with that. And she encouraged me to, open my own place. And there were several business people in town. Jack Reed Sr., loved him. I remember when we were first opening the place, and I was a 25-year-old scared kid that didn't know what she was doing, and he was just like, you're going to be fine. Just that reassurance from people who have been in business for a long time. There's definitely been a lot of that. And then I don't know as much mentors as I've had a lot of strong women in my life to look up to. My mother is a very strong lady that's very opinionated and fully is who instilled the belief in me that I can do whatever I want to do. I just have to want to do it. There's a lot of women in our family that have owned their own businesses and are their own bosses. So that was always just something I had as an example growing up, never anything that I thought was out of reach. So that helps a lot. The more people you can see that are successful at this and that have overcome and can do it, it lets you know, why not you? You can do it too. So
what advice would you give to a woman who maybe doesn't have that circle of influence that's positive in that way to nurture?
So I would say your first step is finding that group of people. There are groups that already are in place that support women in entrepreneurship, and finding that group, if you don't already have that built in, look for those people. You need a support system. Whatever you do, you're going to need a support system. So finding that first. If there are already people in your life that you do look up to, but maybe you're not close to, like, find the courage to talk to them. If it's a particular business, we've had so many people wanting to start restaurants over the years that have come and talked to us that we've never met them before, but so-and-so told them, you should go talk to Jason and Amanda. So we'll sit down with them and just be honest with them, like, this is what it looks like. Are you ready for that? Have you ever done anything like this before? You should probably work at a restaurant first. So, that sort of thing. If you don't already have it, then you're going to have to look for it and find it. And that may be the first obstacle you have to overcome. But once you have a good system in place, it's a lot easier to feel like you can do what you need to do to get where you want to go.
That's great advice, Amanda. Thank you. What skills do you think are necessary for a business owner, an entrepreneur, a restaurateur, like just across the board? What do you think has helped you and Jason be so successful?
For sure, people skills. And like I think I maybe said earlier, you almost have to have a degree in psychology to do this too, is just understanding, and it takes a long time to get here, but understanding how complex people are, that you can't assign intent to other people, and understanding how to work with people and work with their different quirks and characteristics. Definitely having employees and having to manage other human beings. Not being a parent, that's really difficult for me. It's not something I've had practice in, but I've learned over the years, everybody's different. There's going to be different things that motivate others, different things that appeal to others. Even the way that you market yourself, you've got to do it in different ways because it might appeal to one group, but it's not going to appeal to another. So just kind of getting a better idea of what your base is, what your community is, what the people you want to work with are like, and knowing how to work within those parameters.
What advice would you give this to a woman who's looking to start her own business, whatever it may be? What are some things you would make sure she considers?
Take a big vacation first. Make sure you have all of the personal time you want, because you're going to lose a lot of that after a while. I think the first thing is understanding what it is that makes you happy and what brings you peace, and knowing that what you have to do to pursue those things, but also to protect those. So you're going to need to know what your limits are and what your boundaries are from the get-go. You probably won't. You're probably going to figure that out as you go and be like, oh, this thing really affects me in a negative way. I need to stop it from happening and learn that way. There's really small things over the years that we have done, and it's setting your expectations for others. I would probably advise first doing as much research as possible on what it is you're interested in and talking to people that are already doing it and have been doing it for a while. Don't talk to a newbie. They haven't learned yet either. So talk to someone that's seasoned in it and knows what you would have to deal with. And you might find out in that you're actually not that interested in that. You're not willing to do what it might take for that to be successful. So then maybe you explore what it is that does make you happy, what energizes you, what brings you peace, all of that sort of stuff. And just pursue that with everything you've got and protect it. And I think for me, also learning what my boundaries are and setting those boundaries early on. I didn't have a whole lot of them. Now I have so many. And also even with whatever your business is, learning to set your expectations with your customers, your friends, everyone around you, letting them know what they can expect of you and what you expect of them. A really simple thing that we did at the cafe that may not, I'm sure a lot of restaurants wouldn't follow the same path, but it's what works for us, is we close at 2 o'clock. So at 1:45, everything's to go, so that my staff, who is mostly single moms, can go and pick up their kids. And just knowing there's going to be people that don't like that rule. They're going to not understand why they can't stay an hour after you close and hang out and talk to their friends. And I'm like, I'm not showing up at your place before you close and asking for you to do a lot. Everybody has a life outside of work. And for me, also realizing work is work. Work is the thing that you do so that you can have the life you want to have. And separating those two is very important for me.
How do you measure success?
For me, I measure success by how happy I am outside of work. If I am constantly at home worrying about what's going on with the cafe or what's going on with my staff or whatever, then something's off there. Something's off kilter, because it shouldn't be affecting my time alone and my time at home with my husband. So as long as I am proud of what I'm doing, regardless of how other people see it, I'm very proud of the cafe. I'm proud of that we've been in this business this long. 17 years is 100 years in restaurant time, and that me and Jason, our relationship has only grown stronger through this. My marriage is very important to me. He is the main person in my life that I want to give all of my energy to, and the fact that I have a career that allows us to do what we want to do, to travel, that I get to spend time with my family when I want to, and that we have those limits set. We're not going to be open on weekends. We need some time to ourselves. This job is not one that operates without the two of us. So if we have to be here every time it's open, we're going to have to close sometimes and make some time and prioritize, our own happiness in life.
Why do you guys believe it's so important for you to be present here and you haven't hired extra employees to handle that and not be here yourselves to have that time? Why is that important to you?
Part of that is probably me having control issues. If I had to put my finger on one thing, I don't do really well with giving up control, especially something that's my creation, because if I had a child, I would be the same way. I'd want to be overseeing everything with them. So that's definitely part of it, but also our cafe is not a high-end place. It's very budget-friendly. That's one of the things we wanted to do. We are people who live on a budget, and we want people to be able to afford to eat with us. Because of that, there's not a huge profit margin. So it's either we would pay someone to manage this and then really not make enough to live on, or we manage it ourselves, and we just know that sometimes we're going to have to hit the pause button and come back later. The things I would maybe expand a little bit on being a manager.
Okay, let's do that.
So I think the biggest thing that Jason and I both have had to learn over the years is how to deal with all the different personalities that come and work at the cafe, and sort of understanding that whether we want to or not, we're going to be seen as a mentor to them, and taking that into account. We almost always have people in their 20s that work for us. And if you're out of your 20s, you know that things are going to change a lot when you get to your 30s and when you get to your 40s, and kind of taking on that responsibility of giving them a little heads up on that. Like, here's what's coming. It's a job that people don't stay at very long. It's not normally, it's one that has a lot of turnover, and that's fine, and you have to just know that. I get very attached to the people who work for us, so that has been a struggle for me sometimes, to be able to let some people go. Some people it's easy, but a lot of the times I'm just like, oh, but okay. It's like, letting your kid go. And it's been really great seeing people that worked for us in the past will still, come back and visit and share what's going on in their life. And we just recently performed a marriage of one of our past employees, and that was such an honor that she contacted me, and she's like, I want you and Jason to be who marry us. So being a part of their lives, that has also been a huge reward and struggle at the same time. My niece works for me right now, so there's another balance of like family and being the boss, and also trying to manage people, but these people and what their struggles are, and you're like, I know you're having a bad day because your kid was up all night, so I'm gonna take on a little bit of this, and tomorrow we'll talk about that you need to clean up after yourself. So, there's definitely a lot of that. That's a huge part of this.
If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would you tell yourself?
She's not going to listen. I don't know that I'd waste my breath because she's very stubborn. I think I would just stress the importance of giving people the benefit of the doubt, and also finding out sooner than later what it is that's a priority to you, and what it is that you really get your joy from, and what you want to protect. And, in my 20s, I definitely wanted to just have parties and go on trips and do whatever and be very, very social. And in my 30s, I was like, I'm getting kind of tired, and maybe we should work on that big hole in the house, that kind of stuff. And by your 40s, you're like, okay, family members are getting older, and I need to spend time with them, and I want to spend more time with the close circle in my life, and figuring out how to find that balance with work and life. But again, she's not going to listen.
Amanda, this has been so much fun. What a treat. Thank you so much for sharing your story and allowing me to come and talk to you today. So I appreciate you so much, and thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.